Hola amigos de Wine News TV, les invito a conectar conmigo y con mis invitados en Wine News TV On The Go, un podcast que a su vez es un espacio donde aprenderás sobre el mágico mundo del vino a través de invitados de todas partes del mundo que nos contarán sobre sus proyectos para obsequiarnos de forma embotellada música, fuego y leones, como decía el gran maestro argentino Jorge Luis Borges en su poema Soneto al Vino. Hola amigos de Wine News TV, sigo aquí en Seneca Lake, en los Finger Lakes. Estamos en Anthony Road, una bodega que adoro, que hace unos vinos maravillosos que llegan a Puerto Rico con Pan American Wine y todo vino. Y estoy con los fundadores propietarios, Ann y John Martini. So happy to be here. How are you guys?
Great.
All right. Can you tell me a bit about your story as a couple? I know that you have beautiful children and grandchildren. Before we get into the Anthony Road project, tell me about how you met and where you guys grew up. I like to listen to the personal stories.
You're hearing the two of us chuckle because Ann is the girl back door.
Okay.
Our family bought the house behind the Martini family. And in 1957, my father moved us all to New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
He had a new job in New York City, so
Okay.
we lived right behind the Martinis.
And you were very young back then, fairly
I
young.
was in eighth grade.
Eighth grade. And how about you, John?
And I was, what's 2 years? I'm 2 years older than she is.
Okay.
So I was a freshman.
Uh-huh.
No, sophomore year. And yeah, so Ann and her family, and it was a time, in a sense, where she is one of 6, I'm one of 7 children, and
we're the older ones.
Yeah, and all pretty much the same ages. So we all hung out together. She hung out more with my sister,
Right.
who's younger, and
That's my age.
yeah. And so basically, we went to the same school. She was 2 years behind me. And as we moved through life, went off to college and stuff like that.
So before college, no romantic relationship.
Now, kind of starting maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
like an interest.
There were a couple of bursts of lust.
I love that. Okay, spontaneous, right?
Spontaneous.
Okay, with no commitment. You were young. You had careers in front of you.
Well, we did.
And then we kept in touch when I was in college.
Okay.
I went to school in Rochester.
Okay, and you went to Boston, right?
I went to Boston College.
Yeah.
And so we would, when we had an event at school, I'd invite her to come.
That's nice.
If I was allowed off campus in Rochester.
Of course.
This is in the 60s.
Early 60s, right?
Yes,
Early 60s.
60,
62, 63.
Wow.
See, yeah, I graduated college 64, you 66.
Mm-hmm.
What a beautiful story. I'm so privileged to be listening to this.
Basically, and so I'm graduating from college, and what am I going to do? It took me 2 years to wake up and pay attention. And so I hadn't any real plans. Actually, Ann's sister in January, or actually Christmas break in my senior year, said, "Hey, there's this thing called the Peace Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should go in the Peace Corps." So I go back to Boston, filled out the forms, and forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
In April, I think, I got a notice saying, "You've been selected to go to Malaysia."
And what was the mission? I do know in broad terms what the Peace Corps was all for or is all for, but your particular mission, what were you supposed to do there?
So in our situation, and there were 90 of us, BA generalists who were going to teach in English or Malay.
Okay.
But it was an English colony. The country was trying to fortify their education system. And so I went in as we went in as Malaysia 7.
Not me.
Not Ann.
Yeah,
she
your
was
group.
Still back in school, our group. And pretty much all of us were out in schools teaching. I taught science in English. I knew enough Malay to speak it and to live, if I had to. But I didn't know enough because I did try at one time to teach in Malay. But I didn't have the depth of language to be able to define terms. And so I was going to be a bad teacher. And so I had the choice. The school I went to, I could go to the Malay side and learn more language at the expense of my students, or go to the English side and teach there.
And when did you come back to the United
So I
States?
came back in December of '66.
Uh-huh.
So Ann and I were sending blue
Letters.
letters home.
Oh, I got all the blue letters. And
You still have them?
I do.
Fantastic. And then when did you officially
Well, he came home.
engage?
I had already graduated from college, and I got my first job teaching art in a school on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on my own. You know, it was so exciting.
Right.
To after all those years to be on my own. So
And what year you guys got married?
67.
67.
But when he came home from the Peace Corps, I thought, nah, I'm having a good time. But then after a while, I realized, yeah, maybe I should.
Let's talk a little bit about wine, and then we will integrate the family. Growing up, John, were you exposed to were your parents to wine drinkers?
Our parents were cocktail drinkers.
Okay.
So the only exposure we had to wine, and our parents did share it, or my parents did share it at Thanksgiving and Christmas with cold duck or something like that. It was on the table.
Right.
And, it wasn't something. So most of my alcohol consumption at home, because we live close to New York State, and the drinking age there was 18, and people were getting killed coming home, going up there to drink. And then, so my parents said, you want to drink? You drink at home.
Perfect. Yeah.
And, bring your friends, we'll take care of it. It'll be all right. So, it wasn't that. So it was beer and scotch and gin. Wine didn't enter into our daily diet until, in a sense, we moved into this area here and started with friends here having wine every once in a while. But when we started growing grapes, then wine became.
Was it the same for you, Anne, growing up? And your parents, were they wine drinkers?
No,
not at all.
And I'd go out on a date with a guy in college, and he'd get a bottle of Lancers.
Yeah,
Lancers or something, and I thought, oh, this guy knows his wine.
Interesting. And so, what line of business were you in after the Peace Corps? Like, what were you doing as a job?
So this gets a little complicated or uncomplicated. So we come home, we decide to get married, and
58 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous.
So I get an offer to work for the Peace Corps in the training center in Hawaii.
Hilo, Hawaii.
So I call Ann up, and I said, we're going to get married in August. And I get this call, in June?
You were on your way to Boston College Law School.
Right. I was going to go to law school. That's right. See, I forgot
about that.
So we basically, I call her up and say, hey, after we get married, you want to go to Hawaii? And we'll work for the university, because that's who was running the Peace Corps training program. And she said, sure. What else are we going to do?
Exactly.
I go to law school, but this would give us an opportunity. And so we lived there for a year, but we had our son Peter was born there. And so when we get back after it, still thinking of going to law school, but
when you say coming back, was that to New York or Boston?
To
New Jersey.
You were on your way to Boston.
We were going to go to Boston, but Ann's father had started a company in Rochester.
Okay.
And he said, don't go to law school. You can always hire a lawyer.
Yeah, of course. Sure.
You have a son now. You got to take care of him.
You got to take care of him. So come work for me. And so I did. And it was with ozone generation and ozone generators and basically using it for purifying water. So as they do in Europe a lot. Here, we primarily use chlorine. And so I did that, and the technology, they moved the company here to Geneva.
Oh, okay. So that's when wine got into the picture.
That's how and so the friends that we started to associate with are our age, and one was a banker, two were bankers, and different occupations. So we
do a lot of things together.
Right. and have dinners and not drink as much wine in the sense as we do now, but
Mhm.
certainly wine was part of the meal.
This is what, the 80s, 70s?
This would have
Oh,
been
70s.
70s, 71, 2, 3.
69, 70, 71.
How many wineries were in the Finger Lakes back then?
Oh.
Not that many.
4 or 5.
Oh wow.
Taylor, Gold Seal, Great Western, and Taylor and Great Western were kind of tied together. There was Canandaigua, or Constellation.
Was Dr. Frank open or not yet?
He was there, and he was open. The original doctor.
Of course.
Yeah. And
They did all the meetings we go to.
right.
Rico.
And when it happened later. So the technology we were working with was sold to a company in Baltimore, and I went with the technology.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to Baltimore, but we would come back here to see Ann's parents and come back and visit friends. And one of the friends said, "You got to quit your job and grow grapes."
They were just starting to plant here.
Of
Taylor
course.
Wine Company was planting in Dresden, so they had all the plantings up the road here and down in Dresden.
So that friend changed your life in
Yes.
many
Friend
ways,
changed
because
my
he.
life many ways.
Yes.
But that was a little adventurous back then.
You
It
think?
was a leap. Yeah, of course.
I mean,
I was going to ask you what I asked Scott Osborne yesterday when he told me that he moved from real estate to wine, and I said to him, "So that's when you
Yeah.
when you got crazy, right? When you, because it's a leap, right?
It's a leap.
we knew nothing of it. We didn't even know it would take 3 years before we got any money for our fruit.
Well, we're not sure we ever got any money.
So let's place this in a specific year. What year was this when the friend told you you should go quit your job, grow grapes?
1973.
1973. And then when the
Yes, we moved here in April of 73.
73. We
Okay.
bought the farm. The friend was a bank. He worked in the bank,
In the agricultural sector.
and he was an agricultural lender. And he said Taylor Wine Company is interested, as Ann said, in this area, having good soils, good aspect towards the lakes, great places to grow grapes. And so this property was for sale, and we bought it in partnership with the friend,
Mhm.
and we started planting for Taylor.
1973, 4.
73, 74, 75,
Well, yeah, actually, weren't we planting the Marshall Forest for 40 wine?
Well, we were, but
Right.
Taylor wasn't prepared at that time, and 40, we never went to 40. I mean,
And what was this place called, the winery? Taylor?
no, it was just Martini Vineyards.
Martini Vineyards.
Right.
Your last name.
Our last
You
name.
named it Martini Vineyards. Okay.
And so we grew for Taylor until that market changed. And they were not prepared for the change that was going through the wine industry. As we talked earlier, people were now starting to enjoy wine without having to think about it and just enjoying it with a meal, but they were also changing what they liked. And women would go into a bar and order a Chardonnay instead of a Scotch on the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
The Chardonnay could have been red.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden, in this country, the shift from 60 red to 40 white went 60 white to 40 red.
Mm-hmm.
And Sutter Home did White Zinfandel, because what are we going to do with these red grapes?
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, Taylor, who was making ports, sherries, sweet fruity wines, and sparklers, had no market for their wine. The market was falling apart.
Taylor, the British company.
No.
The Portuguese.
No, Taylor Wine Company.
Oh, the local. Oh, okay.
They, at the time, when we started, they were the second largest producer in the country.
Okay.
But it was primarily, as I said, cherries, ports, sweet fruity wines.
Okay.
Easy made. They were getting 400 or 500 gallons a ton. Buy acid, add sugar, make wine.
Yeah, make a lot of money.
But they weren't prepared to shift the grapes they had in the ground to Chardonnay, to Riesling, to Cab, to Pinot, whatever. They didn't feel comfortable, and they were probably right, because the temperatures then were 18 below zero when we moved here.
So it's gotten warmer over the years.
It has gotten warmer. It's a combination of getting warmer but also the industry learning how to take care of the grapes in a way that they will survive those winters and produce fruit.
They wanted us to plant the hybrids,
Right.
French American hybrids.
Which is what we did. And all of a sudden, they did not, in a sense, they did not need our grapes. And so I was trying to sell the grapes anywhere I could. I took them down to Long Island.
So when they cut that contract, you guys saw some difficulties, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of
Well,
the
at that time, you were working for the experiments.
right. Actually, go back to when we started, as Ann said, there's no money. You know, the grapes are in the ground.
This was in April, so by the end of May, you had another job.
Right. So Ann was going to teach, and I was going to take care of the vineyard. But all of a sudden, things were moving too fast. I was able to get a job working for Cornell University at the experiment station in Geneva.
Which is wonderful.
And that took care of health insurance. It took care of income. So Ann did the field work with mostly local women who would come after their kids got on the school bus and leave before they got off.
But I would have a buggy at the end of a row with one of the little kids,
one of our babies,
or on my back or something.
Right. I mean, we would be arrested now.
Oh, I would never let my kids do what I did.
Times have changed, but
those
kids are much stronger than my generation. Don't worry, if nothing happened.
Well, they're all here working.
Yeah, of course, they're all healthy and sane.
So basically, that allowed us then to, and I worked at the station, and so I had no more access than you would have had to go over and see like Nelson Shawless and say, gee, how do I do this? Or how can I do this? He was, at that time, a leader in grape research. Actually, one of the funny stories, so I go up into the newly planted vineyard, and I see a dead vine, and I see another dead vine, and they're only about this tall. I haven't put the post-wire in. And I go over to Nelson, and I say, gee, Dr. Shawless, I have dying vines. And he was the type of researcher who would ask you 10 questions for every one you asked. And he said, go draw me a map. So I go back out. I got a graph paper, and I'm dead vine, not so dead vine, not so dead vine. I take it to him. He says, you got hit by lightning. And he said, you know, the ones in the center of that bolt, they're gone. But the rest will recover. I mean, that ability that he had to look at that and tell you got hit by lightning.
A hypothesis that ended up being incredible.
Right.
So when did the current project, Anthony Road, begin, like formally? When did that happen? And Tito, my friend who's here, was telling me that the winery is named because it's on a road that's named Anthony. I thought that somebody was named Anthony here.
Well, there is a family right down.
Oh, okay.
The Anthony family.
The Anthony family. That's how the road is called Anthony. Okay.
So the road going on the other side of 14 is Larzalier. The Larzalier farm is up there. So that's how all the roads are named here in this area. So basically, we had no market for the grapes. And so, as I like to describe it, over a beer in a bar with a friend, Eric Wilbur, who had gone to Cornell, had an enology, a viticulture degree, and was working. Was he at Whitman then? No, I think he was at Whitman. And hey, let's start a winery. This is 1989.
Okay.
So with some of the 89 crop, we opened Anthony.
But hold on for a second. So between the situation with Taylor, that they stopped buying the grapes, you were working in Cornell and was a teacher.
No,
taking care of kids.
Taking care of our kids.
Of your kids at the vineyard.
And
in those 13, 14 years, what were you doing with the fruit?
The fruit, well, as I said, initially, until let's say 70, 80 or 81, they were going to Taylor.
But in at harvest time, we had some friends who wanted to have some juice to make their own wine.
Okay.
So that little business grew quite nicely.
Okay.
And we had an old rack and cheese cider press that we would press the juice. And
so that was between 81 and 89.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And in 89, this friend says, let's make wine.
So he was going to make wine. And so...
this is a different friend from the one who was your
Right.
Yes.
partner when you first bought?
We bought them out.
Okay.
Because he got another job. He was
Okay.
leaving the area.
It
So
was only in the first part of our vineyard experience for about 5 years.
right.
Yeah.
He moved on.
And then you bought them out.
We bought 'em
You
out.
became full owners, and then in '89, this other friend joins.
So we start Anthony Road. Our surname's Martini. Other
Mhm.
people have already used it.
Yeah.
And as we were trying to think of names, people knew we were thinking of doing this, and they would say, "How are things going down on Anthony Road?" And we said, "Okay, that's the name of the wine."
Yeah.
Well, before that, we would get together,
Oh,
and I have like 3 or 4 lists of names. You know.
Can you share any name that was discarded?
they all sound like shopping malls, or Weeping Oak or something.
Weeping Oak.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, I mean,
What else? What else? What else? I love the creative.
Willow.
yeah.
Weeping Willow.
Yeah, willows.
But why the weeping? Why that
Well,
sad
you know,
part?
they hang
down.
They hang down, right?
I love this. Okay.
But I mean,
This is a behind the scenes. This is a very cool behind the
but I mean,
scenes.
it's kind of a fascinating thing. How do you name something?
Of course.
And I have a brother 10 years younger than I am who has a winery in California. Same system, same thing. Grew up not drinking wine, got interested, but he and his partners tried to come up with a name for theirs. And their name is Taft Street because they bootlegged on Taft Avenue in Berkeley
Oh my
when they
God.
made their first wine illegally
Years ago.
Years
Yeah.
ago. But I mean, they don't grow grapes, and Mike just ended up in the business. You know, quite almost the same happenstance as I. So, you know, we started Anthony Road Wine Company. Derek made the wine. Ann pressed, not only did the vineyard stuff, but now she pressed the grapes. And
The first 40 tons or so were on a rack and cheese press.
Incredible. So you're a winemaker, and you're
He was-
the first winemaker for Anthony
She
Road.
was the first juice maker, and then had it already. And we took our equipment building over on the other side and closed it in. And I found the tanks. You
We
saw
had
the
built
picture.
that building
Right.
back in the.
What were those first wines? Which varietals?
So we did Vignoles, Chardonnay, Riesling, and what was the red?
Did we have Riesling? Oh, yes, we did.
Yeah.
Um,
What was the red? We had a red? No, we didn't have a red.
no,
Cheval. See, we had 4 whites.
we had. When did we do? Did we do Landau?
No, we sold that down to, Hudson Valley.
Okay.
So the first 4 wines were white: Chardonnay, Riesling, Cheval, Blanc, and Vignoles.
Let's stop for a bit on Viñol. Viñol,
Yeah.
for those listening in Puerto Rico, is this unique varietal or variety that I think only grows here, right?
It was developed in France by a guy named Ravat, but because it's a hybrid, and it's not a grape that you would grow economically.
Okay.
right away.
Okay.
It botrytis real early, so if it's a good botrytis, you can make a beautiful late harvest.
Mhm.
If it's not, you gotta try.
I know that this is very dear to your heart because it was planted in '76. You were telling me
74.
74, the Vignoles, and you
Yeah.
still have it,
Yes.
still giving you fruit.
Oh, yes.
In Puerto Rico, you can get the Vignoles wine, which is delicious at Pan American Todo Vino. And maybe in 1-2 minutes, what can you tell me about the style of that wine, the Vignoles, and why does it make you so proud?
It just, first of all, it's because it's the original grapes that we have planted. And there's always a little bit of sweetness and acidity. You get some, sometimes apricot flavors.
Of course.
It's just, it can go drier or sweeter. So
Depending on the year, depending when you
on the
pick,
year.
depending on the weather.
And so when we were picking it for the regular vigneron, we would go through the vineyard, and it was all hand done. And if it looked like it was going to botrytis, we would leave that so that the botrytis would give it the kind of a raisiny
Mhm.
effect. That
And you would separate that for the late harvest
yes,
Vignoles.
and we did. Everything was sorted and hand sorted.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the stories behind, because nowadays you see, well, this big company with a presence in different countries, but this is how it all started.
Yeah.
And basically, it's very unique. The basal buds are not fruitful, so it's not a large. It does not produce a large crop.
Mm-hmm.
The clusters are tighter than my fist, and so as Ann said, a lot of good acid, and sugar, plenty of sugar. It'll go to 26 bricks like that, but still have 11, 10 or 11 acidity. And so, and pineapples and grapefruit, I mean, the flavor components just
The aromatics
unreal.
are very
Yeah.
expansive. I mean, they
But
have a
for,
range.
yeah, but for a economic vineyard, not so much.
Exactly, but you have it there, and
Yeah,
it's
you
like
keep
a
it.
bet. It's a bet you made on Vignoles, and you're sticking to
Yeah.
it, and it makes a beautiful wine. I did a review on it a couple of months ago, and some people that tasted it loved it because it provides pleasure for those who have a sweet tooth, but
Mhm.
also seek balance and acidity, and the possibility of pairing it with food. I had it with a bit of blue cheese, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
Delicious combination. Okay, and who were your first clients? Like locals, New York, or did you start selling to other states? Who were your first
So
clients?
the first thing we put Ann on the road. You know, she went out to sell wine to stores because I was still working.
Yeah.
And
I traveled all over New York. So
Seems Anne is the real engine behind the whole operation from the beginning.
well,
you know, it's
come
funny.
on.
Fantastic. So Anne would take care of the vineyard. Then they sent her on
She
the road.
bought-
Obviously, you needed the insurance. You needed to be
Oh, yeah,
working at the
right.
college. And so the first reactions of those first clients, because nowadays Finger Lakes Seneca has a name,
Yeah.
it's growing. But back then, people, not even California, or California was sort of, you know, getting to be, well, it was already famous. Judgment of Paris was in
Yeah.
76. So you were on the road. This is early 90s.
90s, yeah.
Early 90s. Okay. So Oregon, Washington State, California, very, very well known. What was the reaction of people when you
Well,
said?
I had my little carrying basket
Mhm.
or bag with the wines in it, and I would make an appointment in the store and go in, and they'd see, you know, I was getting gray hair at that time, you know, the little old lady with her wine, and they probably didn't think I knew much, but
Uh-huh.
I fooled them.
Of course, of course.
And just worked out great. And you know, in those days, I didn't have a cell phone, so I would have to go into a McDonald's or someplace and use their phone to call them, you know, to make an appointment or see
Wow.
if they were ready for me.
And what was the reaction when they tasted the wines?
I sold a lot of wine that way.
So they were
Yes.
surprised by how good they were.
Yes, yeah, and a little bit of knowledge that I had, you know.
Of course, that
Fooled
for
them.
sure, for sure. And then, so you started selling within New York.
Right.
Then, when did you become available in other states, like the wines?
Let's see, we had
Well, we went.
had a company, Finger Lakes Premium
Premium
Wines.
Okay.
We were with that group because they came to us and said, "I'm thinking of forming a little company. Could you be part of it?" So we said we did.
Yeah, we offered the office space. We hired somebody to do the phone work and collect the money and stuff. So
That was in the middle, 1996 or 7.
right. And so we represented this Finger Lakes Premium Wines, 10 wineries around.
Okay.
So you know, Lakewood and Red Newt and other wineries. So we had that, and we had 2.5 salespeople. They went on the
Two and a half. Who was the half?
Well, they did it part time.
Oh, part time. I thought it was a little person.
Not sure. No, I'm sorry.
I thought you were gonna. I thought you were gonna say as a joke that Peter, who was young
Right.
when he
no,
was the half.
No.
And how
Basically,
many countries carry Anthony Road now today? You are in Puerto Rico, of course.
Yeah, I mean, we had been in Europe. We're not so much anymore. We had shipped wine we still do, into Japan, and we've gone back and forth with distributors. So we were with Opeachy
Mhm.
at the time. They bought out Finger Lakes Premium Wines, but the sales stalled, and we had somebody come, and they did a great job, but they didn't pass.
Oh wow.
Yeah, well, what's new?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the good news is we only lost $70,000. The other wineries they represented lost hundreds of thousands.
Oh gosh.
So then we had another distributor that was going to take us nationally. That has not worked out, and now we're with our fourth distributor, who that's where Mike was down in New Rochelle.
Okay.
Yesterday, talking to their
Are
sales
you
team.
are you in other states aside Puerto Rico?
Yeah, we're in Pennsylvania, we're in Rhode Island, we're in Massachusetts. I think we're in Maine, New Hampshire. Those are questions from Mike.
Okay.
We were in California. We've been in other states off and on, Delaware. We're in Virginia, Illinois. Yeah, but Mike can.
Yeah,
tell you,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, you go in and out.
Going back to family, because
Yeah.
you obviously are the first generation owners. You have one son and three daughters, right? Can you share their names and what is it that they do in the company?
They all said they would leave when they graduated from college and not come back.
And they're still here.
So
They all
Peter,
came back.
our son Peter, went to Clarkson University
Mhm.
here, and he went out to Wyoming, the state, to be with a friend for the summer,
Mhm.
and then he was going to come back and go down to Wall Street and be
Banker.
So he goes out to Wyoming, and he thought, I like it out here. He's there for 9 years, and he got a job working in a garage,
Mhm.
which was wonderful for us. He called me about 9 years after he left and said, I'm thinking of coming back, and can I come back? And I said, sure. So he came back and became our vineyard, in charge of the vineyards.
But working in a garage, we don't worry about anything being broken.
Of course, he
Because
knows how to
he fixes
fix
it all.
and the
Or
nooks
he
and the
knows who can
crannies.
fix it.
All the
That's right.
equipment and everything.
So he's the handyman.
He's handy. He's involved in the industry, being on committees, and he's also our town supervisor.
That's fantastic. And then the girls.
Sarah, she was at.
That's the second after Peter.
She went into nutrition, and she worked in a couple hospitals in Boston before she moved back here. Her husband was in the Navy, and so they moved around a little bit, and then moved back here, and she worked at the hospital in Geneva. And when our general manager, Al, was leaving,
before
that, she
So yeah,
thought he
basic.
would come back here, and so she's kind of in charge of all of us. And then Maeve, she just came and moved. They sold their house in Rochester about 5 years ago, and came and lived with us while they were looking for a house. And she wanted to.
Is that the one married to the sculptor or to Mike?
That's married to Peter.
Oh, to Peter.
To
Okay.
another Peter.
Okay.
Not our
And
son.
and Sarah, who is she married?
Sarah's married to Mike.
Okay.
And Liz, our youngest.
Who Mike, your son-in-law, also works in the company.
Yes.
It's a family project. I love it.
And our youngest, Liz, Elizabeth, is our tasting room manager, and she does all the work for the tasting room.
And she's the one married to the sculptor.
She's the one married to Sam.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. And then how many grandkids do you have?
We have 12.
12. And you see any of them with an interest in farming, agriculture, and they're into other things?
Yeah, one's a doctor. He's in the Air Force in Texas. The others, they're all around.
So we're very lucky.
I see them all.
That's fantastic. But do you see any of them like becoming the third generation who may end up working for you guys or for the project?
Come on weekends. One of Liz's sons helps in the kitchen.
And in the tasting room.
Room.
So I mean, it's not.
They need to work elsewhere.
Of course, and then they'll come back to
you
this
can't
place.
Force them. I mean, you got to let them see the value, and it's sort of what our kids did. We're at a point when Sarah came back or before, we would have family dinners, and Ann and I are going, we're getting older, who's going to run, what's going to happen to this place? And so Sarah and Liz said, okay, we'll come work. And then Maeve is a nurse, and she was up in Rochester, as Ann said, moved down. So she works part-time now here, and then she has some job that's online, dealing with insurance and nursing and health. So basically, they all came back, and people say, "Wow, you have a vineyard and a winery. Isn't that cool?" And I said, "The coolest thing is my kids are all here."
Of course, I think that's
You
the
know,
best possible
and so
award.
So
They-
proud, so proud.
yeah, they had to make that decision.
And they're a great family. I mean, they all seem to be super nice and committed, obviously, to the project. I feel they are super proud of you guys, what you were able to put together, because you had it much harder. You brought this from nothing.
Yeah, we got into the weeds of our life, and the food we tried to feed them, and survive and pay for everything.
Eligible for food
Food
stamps.
stamps. We didn't do food stamps. We did the gas for winter. Propane, right? Yeah, we got.
This has been fantastic, fantastic. Well, last question, because I'm going to speak to your wine maker,
Sure.
and then I'm going to speak to Tito, because we're going to do some content in Spanish for
Great.
Spanish-speaking audience. What's your favorite Anthony Road wine?
The closest.
No. The closest to you in proximity. I love that answer.
Standard answer.
I love that answer.
Which one of my kids do I love the most?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in a lot of ways.
That's brilliant. I'm going to start using that. I'm going to quote you. At all times, they ask, what is your favorite wine? And I'm going to say, el que tenga más cerca, the closest to me. That's a beautiful.
But a lot of times,
if anything, that reply for me is,
and feel free
is the whole interview. I'm going to quote you. I'm going to say John Martini.
No,
I'm going to say John Martini. I'm going to give you the right credit. I'll probably post something one of these days saying that. How about you, Ann? You have also the closest is your favorite?
58 years.
The bottles between us.
I adore this interview.
Lots of times it's what we're eating too.
Yeah, it depends on what you're eating.
We drink more white than red. And as you said, it's shifting.
It's shifting everywhere in Puerto Rico, at least. Red is still the predominant style.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are drinking a lot more rosé and whites and bubbles nowadays. John, Ann, fantastic. A pleasure to have had this time with you. I wish you nothing but continued success to you, your kids, grandkids, and everybody involved with Anthony Road. I'm going to switch over onto Spanish now. Mi gente, aquí hablé con don John Martini y su esposa Ann. Llevan 58 años juntos y son los fundadores y propietarios de Anthony Road, vinos maravillosos del estado de Nueva York que consigues en Puerto Rico con Todo Vino y Pan American. Gracias por escuchar esta historia maravillosa de amor, de un proyecto común y conjunto y de una apuesta, a bet, una apuesta que terminó pagando. A bet that ended up paying you guys back. Gracias por escuchar. Recuerden dejarnos un comentario, suscribirse al podcast y compartir esto con sus amigos. Recuerden que en el mundo del vino hay espacio para todos y lo importante no es el destino, la meta, sino el recorrido y el viaje. Será hasta la próxima. Agradezco a mi amigo Roberto Tito Herb. Descubran su plataforma como Discover FLX Wineries en Instagram. Él es un Certified Wine Judge, es de madre puertorriqueña y me está ayudando muchísimo estos días aquí por New York State. Será hasta la próxima. Un abrazo.
Este fue el episodio de hoy. Recuerda dejarnos una reseña para que nos ayudes a crecer, suscribirte y recomendarnos con tus amigos amantes del vino. No importa cuán avanzado estés en el recorrido de enamorarte de aquello que decían sobre el vino. Son uvas transformadas en poesía. Aquí hay espacio para todos. Salud y como siempre, dale share.